Alright guys, today I'm going to show you how to change the countershaft sprocket on your KTM 690. It's a pretty simple job. There's just a few little tricks that you need to know to make it easier, and that's about it. Here we go. I got the KTM doodad here and the 8mm socket. You also need the 10mm socket. And all you do is take this bolt off right here. Take this upper one off, which is the 10mm one. That will allow you to take the cover off. Clean your cover while you have it off. You can see that nasty built-up chain lube in there. So here you can see my 16-tooth aftermarket sprocket. I believe this is a JT. The 16-tooth it really works well for me everywhere, but my Enduro race is in, this will be the last weekend before I fly off to go race that, and I'm going to ride in some little more technical terrain. So I'm going to put the stock 15-tooth back on. Since I'm back into motorcycling just recently, I don't have a whole bunch of special tools laying around, so I'm using a lot of the factory toolkit. So once again, I'll use the KTM widget, and I'll use my hammer. And I'll just use the tip of this to flatten out the washer. So I've actually done this before, so my washer is not quite as bent as it was from the factory. And that's going to allow me to get my countershaft off a lot easier. So put the bike in gear and leave the chain on. And actually, if it's not on the stand like I have right now, if the bike is sitting on the ground, it's actually probably a little bit easier to break the nut loose. But it is a 27mm, which is the same as the front axle. And I suggest not trying to use your KTM spanner. These are on pretty tight. By adding an extension, it'll give you a little bit more space to get your hand to break it free. Okay, we got the nut off. We'll pull the washer off. And now I'll show you the next step for actually getting the countershaft out of there easier. So the next step is breaking your rear axle loose and moving the chain adjuster so you can pop the chain off. 32mm socket on the rear of the 690. Don't use your factory spanner wrench. They're a limited time use. So do get yourself a socket cheap at Lowe's or whatever. Leave the axle nut on. I know you can't see this, but leave the axle nut on part way and use it to tap so you don't bang up the end of the axle. So once you get the axle out to there, we can now move the wheel forward. So now that we have plenty of slack in the chain because of moving the axle forward, we can pull the countershaft off and get it out of the chain. I have my original 15-tooth sprocket here, and we'll just slide that back into the teeth. And back onto the splines. When you're taking it off, you'll notice, but the little cavity goes on the outside. take our washer, get it back on there. Thread on the nut. And while I'm sure this has an official torque spec, I don't have a torque wrench. So it's good and tight for me. Plus the fact that the washer, once it's bent back over, will take care of the problem of it coming loose. I'm going to use another tool here called the KTM Special Tool Screwdriver, just to get behind the washer a little bit so that I can start to bend the tab out. And make sure you don't blow the tip off your screwdriver. And after you've done this, you really don't need to bend that tab all the way down. It's just going to make it harder to take off the next time. The probability of just this even slight bend allowing this axle nut to move is highly unlikely, so I wouldn't worry about just pounding it completely down flat. If you want, maybe you can use this KTM special tool to get it down just a tad bit more. There's no way that nut's coming off. So now that you've put the new Countershaft Sprocket on, the smaller one or the bigger one, you're going to have to readjust your chain. So do that accordingly. I'm not going to show you that in this video. Just wanted to show you how easy it is to actually change the Countershaft Sprocket on the 690. If you ride highway a lot, I recommend the 16 tooth, and I've never tried the 14 tooth, but I've heard that the 14 tooth on tight trails, if you're just jumping mostly from fire road to fire road and you're not riding the highway a lot, the 14 tooth might get you a little bit better gearing. So anyway, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you found this helpful, and I'll try and get you some more good 690 videos.